Hi, welcome back to Diamond Custom Paint Shop. This is part one in a series of videos I'm going to be doing, taking a riding lawnmower from start to finish to give it a custom paint job. Now, when I say from start to finish, we're going to be going from, using epoxy primer sealer, getting some dents out, all the way to the final clear coat. So I'll probably be doing, probably about 4, maybe 5 videos, just depending on what I fit in each video. But stay tuned for those videos. It's going to be really exciting. It's not very often you get to paint a riding lawnmower that somebody's going to have riding around their neighborhood and be all sparkly out in the sun, with metal flake and flames and whatever else I decide to do on this. I haven't kind of decided everything I'm going to do yet, but I have some ideas. So stay tuned to see what I come up with in my next videos on this. In this video, though, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking out a couple of dents, and then we're going to be using some epoxy primer sealer. Now, the process I do is the way I was taught to do it. Everybody has their own way, but my way to do it is, and how I do it, is I'm going to take the dents out first with using a couple of hammers and stuff, get them out, as far as I can with the hammer and some heat. And then I'm going to use some epoxy primer sealer here from Lime Line. Then after I do that, then we're going to break out, some Bondo to get everything, nice and smooth, and some glazing, putties to get it ready for the 2K primer we'll put on after that. But in this video, it's going to be getting the dents out and the epoxy primer. Now, the reason I do the epoxy primer sealer before I do any Bondo, how it's been explained to me, if you put the Bondo down first and then the epoxy primer sealer over top of that, you could get moisture underneath there in the Bondo, and then that starts lifting everything up. I haven't been to school. I'm not a body expert. I don't know, how much of that is true, but that's just the way I've been taught. That's the way I do it, and it's worked good for me through all the years. So you can, decide how you want to do it, but I'm going to show you how I do it, and hopefully it works out for you too. So the products we're going to be using in this video, as you can see here, I have Lime Line's Epoxy Primer Sealer. This is a 2-part, a 2K. So this stuff is really awesome, hardens up really good, gives you a nice surface to work off of from there. Because you want to make sure, your base is the best it can be. That way eliminates problems, as you start building on top. The base is really important. So the other products we're going to be using, I just have these, a couple of mallets from Harbor Freight. They're really inexpensive, probably, I don't know, 10 and $5 or something like that. I don't know, somewhere around. They're not over 20 bucks, but I like this one here. This one has a metal end on it and a rubber end. And this one came with different rubber ends. They're different densities. So depending on how hard or how soft you want it to hit. This red one is the one I always use. I like it the best. And I like this little metal to kind of get going on it. And then I have this one, just like a regular rubber mallet. I like it because this is a little softer. Usually I use this kind of at the end, if I even use it at all. It kind of depends on the dent or what I'm doing. If I'm dishing a tank out or something like that, I'll utilize this one quite a bit, actually. So yeah, so that's what I'll use. And then also, while I'm getting dents out, I like to use a little bit of heat. I just use, one of these little torches that helps the metal, makes it, your repairs a little faster, and too, it helps the metal kind of bounce back to where it was before, kind of softens it up, gets those molecules to rearrange again. So, like I said, I'm no chemist, so I was just kind of saying about the molecules. They could line up again, however that works. So, and then before we get to after we get the dents out, then I'm going to go ahead and use probably some 180 grit on a power sander, a disc sander, and kind of go over it real quick, get all the nibs and stuff, just kind of scuff it up, get ready for the epoxy primer. You don't have to go all the way down the metal. You'll probably end up burning through in a couple spots, especially on where you maybe fixed your dents, to bare metal. It doesn't necessarily have to be down to bare metal. This can go over bare metal or the paint, just scuff down paint. It'll work just fine. So then after I do that, I'm going to use Lime Line's panel prep to get everything nice and clean, all the oils and greases off. I have to remember this was, a lawnmower in use, so it's going to have, greases and oil from, the motor spitting out oil on these kinds of engines on these. And then also have to mention, before I even got to this point, as soon as I took them off, I got my power washer out and power washed them off. So they're pretty clean right now, but I'm sure they're still all greasy and stuff like that. So we'll use this Lime Line's panel prep to get the rest of that grease off, along with some just regular old window cleaner. It's kind of the two things I use for that before we start spraying down. So like I said, in this video, I'm going to show you, how to bang the dents out, and then I'll show you how to mix this and spray it. And that'll take care of this video, and then stay tuned for the next videos I do. Probably in the next video I do, we'll be doing the 2K primer over it, and getting that final sand. We'll probably in that next video do the base coat too, which will most likely be black. So stay tuned for those. And then so right now we'll cut away, and we'll set up to start banging this thing out on the. I see on the hood here. Let me show you. On the hood of this here, you see the two big dents right off the bat right there. I don't know how they would have got there, but yeah, there's two big dents right there. So we'll fix those, and we'll feel around. You just feel around with your hand to see if there's any other ones. Look at it kind of at the flat angle. See if you see anything else. Because sometimes when they're painted like this, it's hard to see, especially if it's a big bowing dent. Actually, right there, now that I look at angle, that's going to need, might not be able to bang that. Oh, can't really see. Might not be able to bang that out. It's more of a kind of a ripple, but we'll get that with our primer, because it's not very big, to kind of straighten all that out. So, yeah. So we'll look over all the other metal parts and go down. There's a bunch of plastic parts on this too. And so we'll be using some adhesion promoter on that. So yeah, let me get set up. We'll be right. Okay, we got our 180 grit, kind of long here. We have my fans on, and I got my respirator. Okay, well here we go. We're gonna mix up some epoxy primer sealer. Now let's just, now we have here Lime Line's epoxy primer sealer, just like I just said. We have the part A, you read that here, and then you have the part B. It's a two-part mixture. And then this is the activator. So you have the primary part, and then you have your activator. Now let's look on the back of this for the instructions. I always like to kind of look over the instructions when I get something new. This isn't new to me, but it could be new to you, so I'll kind of go over some of the things on here. First, we'll go over, it can be a primer or a sealer. We're going to use it as a sealer today, and so what that means is it's going to, you know, seal the metal up, any bare spots really good, kind of lock everything down. And there's all you have to do when you make it a sealer is add some reducer, which we're going to do, and I'll talk about that here in a second. So starting off, you know, surface preparation here. You're going to wash with soap and water, remove any contaminants, and then you're going to wipe the area with wax and grease remover, like I already showed you that we do. You know, kind of clean it off first. So first, like I said, on this, my parts, I power washed them, which would be the, you know, soap and water kind of part, get, you know, all the big loose stuff off first, and then you're going to go ahead and use a wax and grease remover. And then after that, I use, like you saw, glass cleaner, and I'll do it one more time on my part here before we actually lay this down, because my part's been sitting in my booth for a day. So we'll just get anything that could have fell on it, you know, blown on it. So we'll take care of that with just another round of wax and grease remover and some glass cleaner. If you get, like it says, prepare and prime bare metal with appropriate self-etching primer with aluminum and stainless steel. Must be sanded with 180 220 grit sandpaper, and primer must be applied within the 72 hours if you get down to steel on aluminum or stainless steel. So but yeah, we're gonna use this as a sealer, so we're gonna seal up all the, you know, the bare metal and all that just with this epoxy primer. Okay, now the mixing instructions. This is the very important part on any product you get. You always want to look and see how you mix it. So on this product here, the epoxy primer, it's 1 part primer to 1 part activator, so it's 1-to-1 is what we call it. It says induction, no induction time is required. Reduction, once catalyzed, epoxy primer can be made into an excellent sealer by reducing 10 to 20% with the appropriate temperature urethane reducer. And right here we just have, this is like a medium reducer. We're going to use this. I have put mine in this bottle here because I use it a lot. So I keep it in one of these little squirt bottles. You just get these on Amazon. These are really handy to keep your reducer in. Makes it really easy, you know, to add reducer. You're always adding reducer to, you know, when you're airbrushing and stuff like that. So what's in here is essentially this Lime Line urethane reducer right here. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be using it as a sealer. So we're going to add about between 10 and 15%. Probably not quite 20%. It's not an exact science. I'll show you here in a minute, you know, how I figured out where my reducer is going to be, like I have marked on this cup here. So application, adjust air pressure to 45-50 psi at the gun. When using HVLP, use 6 to 10 psi at the gun. Apply 1 to 2 wet coats to desired building, allowing 15 minutes flash time between coats. Now remember that there, the flash time. You want to make sure you adhere to those flash times. Let the first coat flash off, and then apply your second coat. That way you won't have any problems with you know, the adhesion properties of it. Then allow 30 to 60 minutes dry time before applying additional primers or top coat. So you want to wait about an hour after you spray, depending on the temperature, you know, where you're spraying. If you're in, you know, 70, 80 degrees like we are in this booth here, you probably, you know, 45 minutes or so. Typically when I'm doing something, this is a part of, you know, I usually have multiple projects, so I'll typically spray my primer on, and then the next day I'll start working on it again. So I don't think I've ever really jumped on it as soon as an hour. You know, maybe in a few hours I jump back on a project, but you can if you need to. Allow to dry overnight before applying body filler. So in this case, like we're going to be doing our body filler after we apply our primer, we're going to be waiting overnight until the next day. So basically 24 hours, but the same time tomorrow as it is today, we'll start applying our body filler on our dents. So that's a key note right there to remember. Okay, and then we just have some technical data over here. The pot life is 24 hours, you know, once you mix it. Yeah, that's about it. All you really kind of need to know. There's other stuff on there, but, you know, we just kind of went over the important things there. Okay, so we're going to have marked on this cup here, kind of for beginners. If you're kind of new to this, I know when I was new to it, I like to have, you know, some detailed explaining sometimes on some things, because a lot of times when you're a beginner, you're not quite sure about some stuff when people talk about one-to-one, you know, all these kind of terms you use. So I'm just going to go over it real quick for all the beginners out there. If you already know, just bear with me here or just kind of fast forward a little bit. But okay, so now I figured I'm going to mix 8 ounces of product total. So since it's 1-to-1, it's pretty easy when it's 1-to-1. You know, you 1 part of one, and then you use that same amount on the second part. So what we've done here, since I want to do 8 ounces total. Did I say 8 ounces before? I meant 8 ounces if I didn't. I may have said 4, but we're going to do 8 ounces total. So you're going to take half of that, and so that'll be, and you'll mark that. So that'll be your part A. Use this, and you'll fill it up to the part A mark, which is 4 ounces, or the number 2 in this case. And then you're going to take the part B and use that same amount. So you just add, you know, 4 ounces to that again, which would give us the 8 ounces, which is the overall amount. You'll add the part B up to this level line right here. And then since I'm at 8 ounces, I think 10% of 8 ounces is just under 9 ounces, somewhere, you know, right at 9 ounces. 15% is like 9.6. So we're just going to go put our reducer, and I think 20%, the max it says on there, is just under 10 ounces. So we're going to go about the halfway mark in between the 8 and the 10 there. So that'll put us maybe just a little bit less. So that'll put us, you know, right at about that 15-20% mark there probably. Like I said, it's not exact science, so we'll just kind of fill her up, you know, eyeball it right about halfway in between that 4 and 5, or the 8 and 10, whichever one you're looking at there. Okay, easy enough. So let's get started and mix this up. So I'll take my part A here. And already I kind of shook this up a little bit before I opened it, before I kind of set up here. I always like, if they're sitting a while, just kind of shake them up a little bit. Make sure, you know, if there's anything that needs to get settled in the can, you know, kind of mix that around. Actually, when I'm looking in there, so you can kind of see, in there, it's a little thick at the bottom there. So what we can do is, even when you open it, you know, take your stick. See, if I take my stick, see how that kind of mixes at the bottom. So we'll get in there. We'll just kind of make sure we give it a good stir around, so we don't have any real thick spots. This stuff is kind of thick to begin with. You know, if you're, you know, compare it to like a base coat, it's a lot thicker. So you just want to make sure you get a smooth consistency inside there. No real thick spots. So, you know, any big clumps coming out. Let's give this a good mix up here. Bear with me. Just want to make sure there's a couple of thick spots in there. Just get those going here. Okay. Okay, so we're just going to take this part A and we're going to mix it up to that 4-ounce mark or the number 2 mark, whichever one you're looking at there. Being gray, it's kind of hard to see on the outside there, so I'm just going to look from the inside while you guys look on the outside just to make sure I don't go over. Where am I at there? Oh yeah, my 4-ounce right there. There we go, we're getting close. Yeah, you really can't see it on the outside there, but you can in the camera a little bit. Okay, we're about right there. Then we're going to take our, like we said, our part B, the activator. We're going to fill it up. We're going to double that since it's 1-to-1 and go to the 8-ounce mark. All right. And there we are. Okay. And then we're going to take our reducer. Like I said, we're just going to fill it up till, we get to about where about right there is good. That should give us about, somewhere in between about 15-20%. And that's all there is to it. Then you just take your stick and you mix it up really good. And I believe on my gun, when I set my air pressure and the gauge deck before it goes into the gun, I'm right at like 26 PSI, somewhere around there, 27, just as kind of a gauge. But everybody's setup will be a little bit different. The best judge is, when it sprays on, you'll be able to tell. And also I like to add the reducer and this kind of primers because it makes it spray out a lot nicer too. So you saw kind of how thick it was just with the part A by itself. I mean, once you put the activator in, it thins it up, quite a bit. But I just like, reducer always helps it flow out a little bit better on high, like this epoxy or high build primer. Which you'll see in the later video. I'll be spraying Lime Line's high build primer on. After we get the, the Bondo and all that stuff feathered out real nice, we'll go ahead and do probably a couple of coats of high build primer, just to make sure everything's nice and smooth. Just going to get this little paper from my leafing projects here to set the stick on when I'm done, so I'm not setting it on my table there. Just helps my cleanup. So there, I think we got that mixed up pretty good. I tend to mix my stuff a little longer than you probably need to. I just like to make sure everything's mixed up really good before I spray it. And there's your kind of the consistency now. Okay, then we're going to put our lid on with the filter in there. There we go, and then we're going to put the retaining ring on that. And I'll be spraying this out of my Lime Line Pro gun, which has a 1.4 tip. That gun is pretty awesome because it's really versatile. I use pretty much that gun for everything I do. Except for the only thing I don't use that gun for is if I'm spraying glass. You have to use like a 1.7 or bigger tip for that, which I don't really spray that much, but I do once in a while. But yeah, for the most part, that 1.4 tip gun by Lime Line, you can do everything from, this is our first step here, our epoxy primer, all the way up to your clear coat. So if you're going to get into the spraying, if you're not already, that kind of reduces your cost. You don't need to go and buy a whole bunch of different spray guns. Just buy, get you a good spray gun. You can even get one from Harbor Freight. Get their their Spectrum, I believe it is. Their 1.4 tip, I believe they have. That's an awesome gun for a beginner. And then get you, like I've talked about before, the Avante airbrush from there, and then you're ready to go. You'll be able to do anything you need to do, like you're going to see on this project. So, yeah, there you go. Let's got that mixed up. We'll cut away. We'll come back. I'll be set up on my part. I'm just going to spray the hood part of this right now on camera. And I'll do the other parts because there's a bunch of parts to this. So we'll do the other parts off camera. I may show them periodically throughout my videos on this project to kind of show you some progress on it. But for this one, we're just going to spray the hood. So I'll be set up on the hood. We'll lay down, 2-3 coats of this epoxy primer. We'll just see how it lays down. And then we'll go from there. And we'll be right back. Okay, we're going to do one more round of cleaning before we actually, start applying the epoxy primer. We're going to use Lime Line's panel prep, just like we used before. And this is where you kind of want to start using your gloves when you're touching your part. Anytime after this, before you do any kind of coats. I usually take my gloves off, when I'm doing airbrushing and stuff like that. It's fine to touch it. Just make sure your hands are clean. You just didn't get done eating a big slice of pizza and then touch your part. But yeah, but right before, I like to wear my gloves, and doing final cleanings, just so if you touch it to spin it, then you're good to go. So let's get to spraying some of this. Okay, so on my gun here, just real quick, have my trigger set all the way open, band patterned wide, and my air all the way out. So full air on the gun. Okay, we got the epoxy primer sprayed on. We did 2 good coats on here. It turned out fantastic. Real nice, application, nice finish on there. I'm really happy with how it was applied on there. So, yeah, so from here now, as you can see, we're going to go ahead and start putting some Bondo on these spots. There's 2 spots in general on the front right here. Remember where we fixed those dents? There's still, a little bit dimples there. We're going to fix those with the Bondo. I kind of looked over. I don't see any other spots we need to fix. Everything looks pretty straight now that I got the, except for, let's see, right on the top right here. But we probably use the glazing putty here for that, for this little, it's just like a little ripple on the top. I can only see it if I look down the top here on the flat surface. So, yeah, like I said, I like to use Upol products. They've always worked pretty good for me. Let's see here. So let's look at the drying time. I know the drying time isn't very much on this. I haven't used this in a little bit. So let's see here. So the drying time is 15 to 20 minutes. So not too bad. So after we apply it, should be dry enough in like 20 minutes. We can kind of start sanding it down. So, and then it says initial sanding is 80 to 120 grit, then a final sand of 180 to 240. So yeah, so and then obviously I got some 180 grit right here. We're just gonna scuff these spots up a little bit first, and then we're gonna use some wax and grease remover on it again. Just so we get a good clean area for our Bondo to go onto. This is a 2-part ratio like all Bondos that I know of. Has your activator here in this little bottle here. So, and then this Upol UPO 922. This stuff is pretty awesome too. If you've never used it, I really like that stuff. It goes on kind of pinhole free. So then we got our just a paper plate here to mix the Bondo on. We got couple of spatulas here to spread it. Got a couple of wood sticks here just to do some, mix it up if I need to with that. And then just some rubber gloves. I like to wear gloves when I use Bondo, just so I don't get it on my skin. So yeah, so we'll kind of cut away. We'll be right back. And I'll have it all mixed up. Pretty straightforward how to mix this stuff. Golf ball size down, and then you just squirt like an inch of this, I think, on there. Something like, it says 2% on the instructions, but I don't know what 2% is of what you squirt, what you put down. So I always kind of eyeball it, and it works out pretty good. It's usually, you know, a golf ball size. You put down about an inch long streak of this activator. So, okay, we'll be right back. Okay, it's been about a half hour or so, kind of test a little bit. Seems like it's feels a little soft maybe, but we'll kind of start sanding, and you'll know if it starts clumping up, then you know it's kind of time to wait a little longer. I'll go ahead and run the splat block. We got some 80 grit here. Okay, as you can see, looks pretty good. I think we can go right to a high build primer on this. As you can see, we kind of burned through the epoxy primer right there, and right there. No big deal. We're going to be using a high build primer, and we're going to be adding some reducer in that too, which makes that can be a sealer also. So between those two, those little spots, this is going to be pretty much bulletproof in the end. So yeah, bundle turned out really good. We'll see how we'll do a couple of coats of that high build primer, and kind of start sanding that and see what it looks like. Sometimes you don't realize it till you do that, and then you'll need to add some of the this Upol glazing compound. But as of right now, it looks pretty good to me. So, all right. Okay, well, there we go. That about wraps this video up. Just to recap on what we did, we took this lawnmower hood here, cleaned it up, used some wax and grease remover. Then we banged out the dents, we had on the front of this here. Then we kind of scuffed everything down really good. And then we applied epoxy primer, Lime Line's epoxy primer, and we used it as a sealer. So it laid down really good. And then after that, we kind of scuffed down these front areas here where those dents were at. And we used some Upol Bondo and fixed those areas. And then we went ahead and sanded that down with 80 grit and then 180 grit. As you can see, the finished product here is pretty good. There was no need to use any of the feathering material at this point. Once we get the high build primer on there, we'll see what it looks like then. But as of right now, there's no pinholes or anything in it. That stuff finishes out really well. So in the next step of this video, that I'll be doing is we'll be applying the high build primer, and then we'll be sanding that down, make sure everything's nice and straight, and then we'll be applying a base coat, probably a black base coat on it. So stay tuned for that video to come. Be out shortly where we do that. And so I'll see you on the next one.